We're going to get started. Please rise for the pledge. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Sugars for a roll call, please.
Ms. Arroyo? Here. Ms. Friedel?
Here.
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mrs. Matlack?
Here.
Mrs. Neary?
Here.
Mr. Avadia?
Here.
Mrs. Schultz? Mrs. Tong? Mrs. Seidel?
Here. Thank you. Next, I'd like to make a motion for approval of minutes from the organization meeting minutes dated January 7th, 2020, the board work session special action meeting minutes and executive session minutes dated January 14th, 2020, and approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting and executive session dated January 28th, 2020. Do I have a second? Mrs. Matlack. Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Online voting is open. Now? You're not in there yet?
Oh, here we go. Oh, there we go.
You got it? Okay. Reorg and exec. Okay. Are there any other abstentions? Yes. Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you. Now I'm pleased to turn the microphone over to Dr. Merlash for some very special recognition this evening.
No, let me see it after it's done.
Thank you, Mrs. Seidel. I'm very excited this evening because we get to welcome our good friends from the Cherry Hill African American Civic Association back with us as they are recognizing participants and award winners from this year's Black History Month essay, poster, and video contest. And I believe Mrs. Kathleen Jenkins, Ms. Jenkins is in the hallway, is going to join me up at the podium so that we can recognize these incredibly talented students. I'm very grateful that so many families and so many folks were able to come out this evening, that the board was able to go down and to see so many of the projects that were submitted this year that were on display in the all-purpose room. So thank you all for coming out. And Ms. Jenkins, if you can meet me at the podium, we will get started. For the parents and the children that are going to receive the awards, after you guys receive the recognition, you're going to come up and shake hands with all of the board members. And then after we finish everybody's recognition, Mrs. Wilson, who's the public information officer, who has the black and white scarf on, she's going to take you all out in the hallway and get one group picture. You are welcome to come back and join us for the rest of the meeting. The meeting does get more exciting as it goes on. But if you have homework and other stuff, we certainly understand that as well. So Ms. Jenkins and Ms. Truitt, you're going to meet me up at the podium.
Good afternoon. This year, our topic for the essay contest was African Americans in the Armed Forces and NASA, and we had over almost 300 entries. So you can imagine the judges had a hard time, but they really did a great job. Now, I want to do a shout out to 3 students from this building. If you were in the all-purpose room, you saw that everything was mounted on the walls. So Tara Adams, Cameron Brown, and Anthony Ung did a lot of work. Without them, I can't even imagine what it would have been like. And the schools that participated: Woodcrest, Mann, Kilmer, Russell Knight, Kingston, Rosa, Stockton, Cooper, Thomas Paine, Beck, Carusi, and East. So the staff and parents and students from those schools, we just want to thank you for that. So now we're going to, and let me introduce Tina Truitt. She is the president of the African American Civic Association, and of course, we do this in partnership with the library. And so Laverne Mann is their director, and we really appreciate the partnership that we have with them. And of course, we always, always appreciate the Cherry Hill Board of Education. All right, so do we want to just do them now? Okay. Can someone bring my children in? from the youngest. All right.
Oh,
Okay, so I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to, if you don't mind them standing in front of you, stand right here, and then we're going to make it like a U-turn. Come where I am. Okay. No, stand.
yeah, that's fine.
I need you to stand. Okay. Okay, follow the line.
Okay.
And then, okay.
Oh, wait, it's right
Go
here.
as close to the front as you can. And I'm going to call your names, and then what you're going to do, you're going to shake Dr. Malash's hand, shake Miss Truitt's hand, and which way do you want them to? Okay, all right. So we're going to start here, and you're going to shake everybody's hand, and then we'll shake Dr. Malash's hand. Okay, all right. So we have Judson Robertson. He's first place in kindergarten and first grade. Shake everybody's hand. I'm just going to read. Okay, thank you. Okay. And we're just going to read and you just shake hands, okay? Amelia Podbury, right? Yes. Kindergarten, first grade. Abe. Oh, okay. We'll do you next. Colvin Norman. Abe Arcee. Okay, I'll do my I love when the plan comes together. Now, some of our students have been doing this for a long time, and you're wondering, well, how could that be when they're only like second and third grade? But Xavier Austin has been in the contest for a long time. Jasmine Norman. Melissa Goldberg. Cameron Madrid.
Okay, well, this is going to be a tough act to follow, but does anybody have any correspondence this evening? Strike that. This will not be a tough act to follow because we have a preview of East Spring Musical Legally Blonde. So sorry.
Guys, just come up to the microphone and introduce yourselves real quick. And if you could, I know it's a bit of a challenge because the microphone will pick it up on the camera so that we can.
Oh, okay. So, hi, I'm Alicia Casenza.
And I'm Jackson Feutner, and we're here representing East Drama. We are performing the spring musical Legally Blonde, March 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 13th, 14th, and 15th at Cherry Hill West.
We hope to see you there.
I want you to know how happy you make me. Every guy dreams of finding a girl who looks like you. Don't know why we're here. I see it in your eyes. I guess it calms my fear to know it's not a surprise. I thought one look at you, and like a dream come true, would leave me speechless like you always do. But now we're wide awake. Got some plans to make. Let's take some action, baby. So, baby, give me your hand. We've got some dreams to make true. I've got the future all planned. It's time to get serious. Time to get serious with you.
I never thought that
Honey, no, come on, finish.
Oh, sorry.
Since I was 2 or 3, my life planned out me. I'd get my lottery. Then win my Tennessee. Great big house back east. All of the amenities. 3 kids at least, just like the Kennedys. Here's where our lives began. Just where do you fit in? I'll break it down now, baby. So, baby, give me your hand.
Here's my hand.
We've got some dreams to make true. I know that you'll understand. It's time to get serious. Time to get serious. Serious.
Wait, what? You're breaking up with me? I thought you were proposing.
They expect a lot from me. Going to Harvard Law, my brother's at Yale Law, and this is his wife.
Oh, so
And she's a Vanderbilt, for Christ's sake.
I'm not good enough for you? Warner, I'm from Malibu. I'm not exactly trailer trash here. Richard Simmons is our neighbor.
I'm going to be a senator when I'm 30. I'm gonna need somebody serious. Less of a Marilyn, more of a Jackie. Serious. Somebody classy and not too tacky.
What?
Okay, that came out wrong. Baby, let's both be strong. I think we've known all along.
Just shut up. That mean I'm not a Jackie. I'm not serious. I am seriously in
My future's all planned. I've got some dreams to make true. I thought that you'd understand. Time to get serious. Time to get serious.
Guys, just remind folks again when and where can they get tickets
13th, 14th, and 15th. And tickets are online at showticketsforyou.com. So you can buy them now or at the door, either way.
And it's taken in the auditorium over at.
It's in the Cherry Hill West Auditorium. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you guys for
you.
coming over.
Okay, now that is definitely going to be another hard act to follow. Does anybody have any correspondence? And will you be singing it? Okay. If none, then we will move into our student representative reports, and I believe we will go to West first this time. So, Maria.
Okay, I'm definitely not going to sing this report, and it's not going to be as cool as what you guys just saw. So, with athletics, the boys basketball team is having a great season. They have a 17-8 record currently, and this Thursday they will be going up against East, looking for some revenge from their last game. The girls basketball team is looking forward to playoffs. One of our juniors yesterday, Allison Ahern, hit 1,000 points. She is the first girl in about 20 years at West to hit 1,000 points, and she's only a junior, so more to come from her. And the wrestling team had 2 kids advance from districts to regionals, as our senior John Howe took first place at districts. In miscellaneous, the Virtua and Penn interns have now chosen their new clinics to volunteer at, and each week they report out to Ms. Castellani, who runs the program, on what they're observing and what they're doing at their clinics. Wes had the pleasure of hosting 3 shadowing days for 8th graders. They were able to sit in on some freshman classes and had lunch where the students got to meet the coaches and club advisors. So kids signed up and said what they were interested in, and they were able to meet those coaches or advisors. It was really great to be a part of. The principals committee and I were able to be a part of that, and a lot of sports sent out athlete representatives. And so it was really nice to be a part of, and we wish those students the best of luck. The peer leaders are conducting interviews this Wednesday and Thursday in hopes of recruiting some new great peer leaders, and we just want to say thank you to this year's amazing peer leaders for all the hard work they had put in to help out our freshmen this year. We worked really hard all year to make sure that everything was great for the freshmen and that they had a nice, easy transition into high school. The theater department is currently working on We Will Rock You, and they are getting ready for their show, and we wish them the best of luck in their preparations, and we're super excited to see what show they put on. They put on a great show every year, so that's going to be super exciting. And then the West Band and Singers are currently rehearsing. They had a rehearsal today, and they have another one tomorrow for Broadway night, which is going to be this Thursday at West, so we hope you guys all come out. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Jacob, now over to you for East.
Thank you very much. The big news coming out of East recently is that the boys and girls swim teams are state champions in New Jersey. The girls beat the #1 team in the state as well as the guys, which is Bridgewater Raritan. That team for the last 2 years has won the state championship, so this was a big, big win for the girls swim team, and the guys have three-peated for the last 3 years as state champions. So continued dominance from East Swim. In a surprising thing, both races for both teams came down to the last race. For the girls, they had to get 1 and 3 in the A and B relays for a certain event, and they ended up switching the order of the races to maximize the potential, and they got 1 and 2 consecutively, so they took that home in the last race. Same with the guys. And on March 9th, the fire department will be giving them a parade with the mayor issuing a proclamation in support of the swim teams, so that's a big thing for the teams themselves and the captains who've worked so hard the last 4 years. Spring sports start in the next 2 weeks, which include baseball, lacrosse, boys tennis, softball, track, and boys volleyball. Speaking of sports, the success of the East basketball team has been really incredible this year. It's led by the 3 Greens, 2 of which are brothers, Ryan and senior Ryan and sophomore Drew, but also by other sophomore Jake Green. Their first playoff game is next week against Shawnee, and it's one of their best seasons in 10 years since Jake Silpy led the team. And speaking of, Ryan Green has been recognized as the South Jersey Player of the Month at a local luncheon, I believe, which was a big, big honor for him after all the work he's put in. There is an African American cookout, which is actually a cook-in, they're calling it, because it's from 12 to 2:30 at East, and so everyone's invited to join that, and it's gonna be a great time with different types of soul food, they said, and dancing and activities. So it's a big thing put on by the African American Culture Club at East. As Jackson and Alicia mentioned, Legally Blonde is out next weekend, and it's performed at Cherry Hill West, and it stars obviously them two in leading roles. If you didn't hear them before, the days are the 6th, 7th, 8th, the 13th, 14th, and the 15th, and tickets are available at showticketsforyou.com. The debate team has won their second in their divisional category. It's one of their best finishes in recent years, and we give them all the support, led by multiple seniors in their last year doing the activity. In terms of student participation and student voice, kids are now doing activities like sports in the gyms with supervision during the lunch breaks. This includes basketball, volleyball. So kids were a little bit concerned that they were just wasting their energy during gym times, wasn't be able to get that out after sitting in classes for 3 hours. And as a result of the student voice and the student surveys, we've been able to host kids in the cafeterias, or not in the cafeterias, sorry, in the gyms during lunch breaks, and have them play sports under supervision with teachers. The chess team recently won the South Jersey Chess Championship with an outstanding undefeated season, which was a great honor for Mr. Ruwan, who was the chess advisor, and the rest of the team. The Wall of Fame for seniors came out recently, and so they will be on the wall for 7 years, which was a big honor for all the people who got that recognition from East teachers and faculty. The senior trip is happening in exactly 23 days, and they leave the 19th for 5 days in Disney, and we are all looking forward to that with great anticipation. Sophomore Cotillion occurred last Friday, where everyone had a blast. It was Hollywood themed. There was a cool red carpet, and King P, which is the artist at East, he performed some of his songs, and everyone had a great time. It lasted for about 3 hours, and it was really a good time. The Symphony Orchestra played at the Kennedy Center recently, which was a huge honor for them. This isn't a planned event, so whenever they get invited, that they really should go, and they feel that it was a great honor for them to do that again this year. And it's been a recurring thing recently in the past because of the high quality of the Symphony Orchestra. Going on that theme, East Singers and the Chansons are competing at an invitation-only Westminster Choir College competition at Princeton on Thursday, and that's another big thing because it's invitation-only, and so as a result of their continued dominance in competitions, they've been invited to this activity at Westminster Choir College at Princeton. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you both for your great reports. There will be 2 opportunities for public comment this evening. This first public comment session is for agenda items only. There will be another public comment section for any topic at the end of the meeting. If you'd like to speak now, please identify the agenda item, speak into the microphone, and clearly state your name and address. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. The timer on the screen behind me will indicate the amount of time you have remaining. We do have several students in the audience, so I'd like to give the opportunity to students to speak first if they would like. Okay, if not, anyone who wants to speak on an agenda item. Okay. We'll move into our action agenda, and I will ask Mrs. Matlack to please move. Nope, I'm not doing a great job tonight. I am missing Dr. Malash's comments. So back up. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Dr. Malash for the superintendent's comments.
You're just trying to cut the meeting down, sure, aren't you? I certainly. I will try to be brief. not quite that brief, but brief. Very grateful for the students and their presentations tonight, and sharing what's going on at High School East and High School West, and for the kids, for Jackson and for Alicia who came out from High School East. Please make sure you try to get out to see the shows. All of the shows this year, the high school shows, are taking place in the auditorium at High School West because of the construction that's currently going on over at High School East. The staff, the students, the families have been incredibly flexible. They've done a lot of planning to be able to work together, and I'm very excited about seeing the musical when it goes up next weekend. You have 2 weekends to see it. The West musical, as Maria talked about, will be We Will Rock You, which will come up later. But please try to get out to see the shows and support the students. Theater and music in Cherry Hill, again, as they talked about, absolutely is incredible. Special congratulations to the High School East boys and girls swim teams for winning the state championship this weekend. A tremendous, as Jacob said, a tremendous accomplishment. The boys team has won 3 out of the last 4 years. It's the first girls win in the state championship, although they've been there. It's the first win in a number of years. So incredible work by the student athletes, by the coaches, and again, the commitment from the families. I was unfortunately unable to be there. Saw a great video. It was packed. If anybody was in the natatorium up at TCNJ, but a tremendous showing. There's still opportunity to get out to see the basketball teams compete, to see some of the wrestlers compete as winter sports are quickly coming to a close. And as hastened by the early warm weather that we've had, our grounds crews have been out getting ready for spring sports. Spring sports begin in less than 2 weeks. That first week in March is the beginning of spring sports. So you'll see our kids in the high schools and the middle schools outside. Please be careful if you are driving around campus at that time, for sure, while the kids are out there. But again, check the calendars, check the websites, and please take the opportunity to come out and support the student athletes at the middle school and high school level. February is a quick month, but it's been an incredibly jam-packed month here in Cherry Hill. As always, I'm very grateful to the Cherry Hill African American Civic Association for continuing the longstanding tradition of running this essay poster video contest that they do. And as Ms. Jenkins said, 291, almost 300 entries this year, which continues to be an increase in the students from buildings across the district. Thankful to the teachers in the buildings that work with the children, and to the parents who are willing to continue to support the kids and to be able to come out. It's the first time in a number of years we've done it this way, where they put the displays up down in the all-purpose room to be able to see before the board meeting, as opposed to doing it later where they would do it over at the library. Laverne Mann and the staff over at Cherry Hill Library continue to support the program as well. This has been a great month for projects and activities in so many of our schools as we've taken advantage of Black History Month. There's been curricular presentations, there's been extracurricular programs that have gone on, and again, a couple of the highlights. Last Friday, I had the opportunity to be over at High School West. There was a living theater, a living museum that was done by the students over there. It was done during the course of the day for the kids in the building and the staff in the building, then open to the community. And we had a number of people from the community come out to be able to see, and to talk to and interact with the students. Was a tremendous piece. Again, some specific projects in other buildings. Another highlight is something that we did this year. We, the school district, are involved with Rowan University in the Project Impact program, which seeks to bring more men of color into the teaching profession. We hosted more than 100 young men from High School East and High School West at High School West earlier this month, as well as a number of the participants in the Project Impact program from Rowan. Many of our teachers of color came out, the men from the district came out to speak to the students. And again, a tremendous opportunity to talk about what a great profession, first of all, that education is, and encourage kids to go into it. If we can continue to diversify the classrooms, so our classrooms are reflective of the community which we serve, we'll continue to do a better job, here in Cherry Hill. And then just one final thing. Talked a little bit about, we've spent a lot of time talking about social media and the impact on social media. When I meet with the Board of Education, we get an opportunity to talk about social media quite regularly because they deal with harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There's a large percentage of the harassment, intimidation, and bullying that goes on in our school district, involves children being involved with electronic devices, their cell phones, smartphones, social media applications, and things like that. There's so many different things that kids are exposed to on social media, different types of challenges that are out there that sometimes children want to emulate and want to copy that result in kids getting hurt in our schools. Because kids see things they are not at 11, 12, 10, 15, 18 years old able to process and think beyond, the initial, this might be funny if we do this, let's try this, somebody can film it, we can try it. But kids can be seriously injured. And I implore parents to please talk to your kids about what they're using their phones for. We realize, and most of us have provided our kids with phones, these devices that open up an incredible world that we are very limited as the adults to know what goes on unless we sit down and talk with them and go through their devices, and see what really is taking place to go through. But to all the families, and I know that our teachers talk about this with the kids in the buildings. Please, remind your kids, do not try to emulate or try to copy what they see on social media or on TV or things like that. It just does not end well. Kids learn all kinds of inappropriate things to say and to do. And again, at that age, they want to try them out. And typically it does not end well. Feelings get hurt, bodies get hurt. and it takes time to heal, to go forward from that. So if there's something that we can learn as we've come together and done some incredible activities as a school district the month of February, if that's one thing we can take away, I think it's incredibly important. We will continue to remind parents and families and students in our buildings to do that. We can carry that message, and we want you in the community and home to carry that message as well.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. Now I'm going to ask Mrs. Matlack to please move our curriculum and instruction agenda.
Thank you very much. Superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2019-2020 school year. 2, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2020-21 school year. And we have 2 items on our yellow sheets at your places. I believe the numbering may be a little different, but it says number 4, approval of a special education settlement agreement. Number 5, approval of special education settlement agreements. Do I have a second? Mrs. Seidel, are there any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Okay, the online voting is open. And we have unanimous approval of the motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sugars. Ms. Neary, will you please move business and facilities?
Certainly. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, financial reports. Number 2, resolutions. Number 3, resolutions for the award of bids. Number 4, resolution authorizing competitive contracting for engagement of construction management services. Whew, that's a mouthful. Resolution to approve architect of record. Number 6, resolution for the award of transportation. And number 7, acceptance of donations. Do I have a second? Ms. Seidel, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Ms. Sugars,
Yes.
I need to abstain from 2 of the items, Bill List 3, and I also want to abstain from 14.4 because I did not have the entire background.
Sure. Okay. Mrs. Friedel, you can vote yes on the rest, and I will notate that in the. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin, will you please move human resources?
Yes, I will. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointment certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, leave of absence certificated. Number 6, leaves of absence non-certificated. Number 7, assignment salary change certificated. Number 8, assignment salary change non-certificated. Number 9, other compensation certificated. Number 10, abolishment of a job description. Number 11, approval of revised job description. Do I have a second? Mr. Avadia. Oh, there's another one? Okay, and there is a pink sheet. Any items added? Additional items to the ones that were moved. Yes, thank you. Any questions? Not? Mrs. Sugars.
Okay, the online voting is open. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Mrs. Neary, back to you for policy and legislation, please.
The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying investigation decisions. Number 2, approval of waiver of Regulation 2340, field trips. Do I have a second? Mrs. Matlack, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Okay, the online voting, hold on, is open. There we go. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to strategic planning. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of strategic goals 2020 through 2025. Do I have a second? Mr. Avadia, any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Okay, the voting is open. And the motion passes unanimously.
I do have one other quick item under strategic planning for tonight. I wanted to give a brief update on the safety and security meeting number 3 that was held on Thursday, February 13th at 7 p.m. Couple items on the agenda. The first was a quick review of items discussed at our December meeting. And then Dr. Malash presented the 3 strategic goals that we just talked about and discussed how these should guide our recommendations for the board as a committee. We spent a bit of time discussing an update on Alyssa's law, including the next steps in funding, more details to be provided during upcoming budget discussions in the future. And then based on feedback from the first ad hoc committee, public forums and public surveys, as well as best practices and state recommendations, the bulk of the meeting was spent in breakout sessions developing recommendations in the following 3 categories: safety and security practices, safety and security physical enhancements, and community engagement. The committee ended the session with a draft proposal that is currently in the committee review phase. The recommendations will be finalized during the next meeting, which is scheduled for April 23rd, and the committee will present its recommendations to the full board in May. Any questions?
I have a question. So in these meetings with the safety and security, are there discussions going on in addition to practices and physical, I forget the word you used. Yes, enhancements. Are we also discussing, is the group discussing school culture, socio-emotional learning, inventories of staff and student health and well-being?
Yes. Again, more to come in April after the committee sort of solidifies their plan. Any other questions? Mr. Avadia.
Just for the good of the group, maybe. Today, the governor, I believe, spoke, and that means that this is the week about funding. And you mentioned funding. I guess, what is it? Do we have a sense of what we're, how that will play in, or anything like that, or any recommendations we would have in terms of how to look at that?
So the numbers should come out on Thursday. If you look at the text of his speech, and I can send it out to all of you, because the text is available as soon as he's up and speaking, he indicates that he's continuing to move forward. There's a $300+ million more, going into school funding, continuing to move towards funding districts that have been underfunded. I don't know that underfunded was the word that he used. He'll be in Bound Brook on Thursday, where he will release the state aid numbers. He specifically mentioned $50 million, for districts that are challenged with a decrease, basically, that's there. So based on his comments today, it appears that we will continue moving forward, with the S2, with the increase in funding. But we'll know on Thursday. Hopefully we will know before they're released to the press, but it's always kind of a toss-up. we often see it online before we get notification with what those are. But it was his. If we were to base it on his comments were positive.
Dr. Malash, I believe you also had something you wanted to add about the strategic goals.
I do. Thank you, Mrs. Seidel. First of all, I want to congratulate the board on the adoption of those 3 strategic goals for 2020 through 2025. As you know, this strategic planning process, has been certainly more than a year in the making. But this formal part of the process, has occurred during the course of the last year. And I want to especially recognize some of the folks who were who were involved in the planning process, in the formal process that came together on January 14th and 15th, who are with us this evening. There were 27 people that met with facilitator Judy Wilson, who we've worked with as a district, and spent January 14th and 15th going through the thousands and thousands of data points that came through the survey that was done late in the winter, the interviews and discussions and information that she received when she came out in the fall, and then each of the folks who represented different groups with different backgrounds in the district came together. So if I could, I think I have them all marked down that are here, but if you could stand for me, I know it's you all like to be recognized publicly. I know that's a big plus. So first, Tristan Asenzo from Knight Elementary School, Michael Defner from Carusi Middle School, Sherry Kuntz from Kingston Elementary School, Kathleen McElhenney from Woodcrest Elementary School, Steve Redfern, who's the CHEA president, Lori Neary, one of the board members, Ben Ovadia, one of the board members, Carol Matlack, one of the board members, Lisa Seidel, one of the board members, Dr. Shilpa DeVay, principal at Bret Hart Elementary School. And I think that's everybody that sat on the committee, yes? Whew. So we just give them a round of applause. I'm very appreciative of their work, and so appreciative they'll all be getting a notification tomorrow about the next step in the process, which involves putting together action steps that will flesh out what these goals mean. So, when we say with student wellness, create frameworks of learning and supports for all students to develop the skills needed for social and emotional wellness, what does that look like? When we put it into action to start to flesh that out. So I'm very excited about continued work. We are expanding the role. There will be representatives across the 3 committees. Every one of our buildings will be represented, from Barclay, through the alternative high school and everything in between. It's a combination of administrators, staff members, and certificated staff members who will be participating in that. And they'll spend a day and a couple of weeks, the co-chairs of the committee, with Mrs. Wilson, going through the outline of what's going to take place. Then I would expect later in May, we'll see an additional update from the work that those folks do. So again, incredibly grateful, for the time and the energy and the piece of themselves that they each put into, and that you board members who participated, that you put into this process.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. Next, we'll move into our second public comment period. This is the second public comment section on any item. If you would like to speak now, please speak into the microphone and clearly state your name and address. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. The timer on the screen behind me will indicate the amount of time you have remaining.
My name is Jeff Potowitz. I live in 110 Kilburn Drive, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. School funding is what I'm going to talk about. Thanks for putting up online Cherry Hill Public Schools and a testimony of Sharon Joshio. I was hoping that you also would have passed that on to Senator Sweeney, to other individuals, because it's really, really an interesting paper, what it says. One thing that it said was it contains a lot of information. An example would be our target uncapped aid today is 25.9. Our aid in 25.9 million. That's not what we get. That's our target aid. Back then, when this was written, the quote is from 1988 and 89. Our aid was 20.5 million dollars. And that, of course, was cut over 8-year period. First 5.3 million, and then the total was about 10. If we adjust that number, 20.5 million, we adjust it for inflation and we adjust it for enrollment, not the fact that we have more kids that are at risk. Today, that would be $44 million. So right now we're getting 18.4, and if we're lucky, we'll get 25.9, but adjusted for inflation and the extra students, not the fact that we have more at-risk kids, it would be $44 million. Now let's look at some numbers that she gave. This is all numbers from the district. All right, in today we get 18.4 million in state aid, and that's 8.5%. Lenape gets 28 million in state aid now. That's 17.3%. And Eastern gets 9.3 million. That's 24.1%. That's from you. Now you want to send this along to Senator Sweeney because back in 2005, 2006, Cherry Hill got 12%. Lenape got 25%, and Eastern got 32%. That's why it's important to read all these things. So actually, back then, Lenape got double. Eastern got about 2.5 times. We actually are doing better because we're down to 8.5% from 12, which is less than them. They're down more, but you got to look at it. S2, yeah, I think you should kind of sue with them because S2's not helping us, and SFRA didn't help us as a middle class district. So please also pass it on, that testimony, to Senator Sweeney.
Thank you, Dr. Potowitz.
Mindy Rosen, 6 Fairhaven Court. So I have been inquiring as to when environmental resolutions report is going to come in about the handicap parking and signage. And I found out that it will be released on May 2nd in a closed session to the Strategic Planning Board. And I'm wondering why it has to be a closed session. That's my first question. But then made me look back at other things. And on May 7th, there was a BNF meeting, and I watched it again, and this paper was given out, which said what happened in the past and what we're doing in the future. And so moving forward, it said that in the 2019-2020 budget, this permanent solutions for stage access are planned for the 2019-2020 budget at Cooper, which I know you did, Hart, Stockton, and Beck, and tentative plans to purchase a portable lift for Barton, Johnson, Kingston, Knight, Mahan, and Chart. So I'm wondering where we are on those things. And if you go back and watch the May 7th meeting, you'll see Carol, and you'll see, I think you were there, and she's not here, Ruth, talk about, so you're telling me that this is going to be done, and also playgrounds within the 6 to 12 months, and then Mr. Sugar said, yes, this is going to be done between 6 and 12 months. So if you go back to that, it's online, you will see it. So I'm wondering where we are with that timeline for accessibility for the stages, for the playgrounds, and I'm assuming that the signage and parking is going to be covered by environmental resolutions. So, those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Rosen.
Rick Short, 1002 Chelton Parkway. 90% of the time when people come up here, 95% of the time, it's usually a problem. And sometimes I think the board doesn't really do anything about it, and they don't speak up. It's kind of a one-way street that we live in. Example, last year the computer people came in, robotics. They were looking for money. We didn't really hear anything about it. Came up again in the budget cycle, still wasn't fixed. It's kind of ignored. But the public doesn't know what happened because we have no idea what happened last year. There was a problem. Did it get fixed? We still don't know. Handicap keeps coming up time and time again. Guess we need more information. If we look back to 2016, October 2016, I talked about security. Then the old crapper hit the fan, February 27th, 2018. Total security breakdown. It's not like you didn't see it coming, right, folks? Then we have October 2019. Sent letters into the security forum. 6 points at Kingston drop-off. What do we have last week? We have a car accident during a drop-off. You know, it's almost like these things are almost predictable. So, it's not good when you can predict mistakes, and security mistakes especially. But I look forward to working with the, having a meeting with the district. It's kind of last hurrah. There are state things that are required that aren't being done. It's right in writing. So I'll be back again, and hopefully the district will follow the state guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Short.
Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. Well, you could almost beat town council's meeting tonight that with the rate we're going. I do have a question about the architectural firm that was hired this evening. How does that reflect on the upcoming bond? Does the new firm have to review all 19 buildings since they are a new firm? Because if I was a new architect, I would certainly not go by someone else's reports. I would certainly go in each building and do my own report, particularly since they're new to our district. So I am curious if that will affect the bond. Secondly, I'd like to congratulate Kingston. I went to their bingo night last Saturday night, and I have never seen a crowd like I saw. And I've got to give that community a lot of credit. In referencing the traffic issue of last week, this is an ongoing problem. Parents do not follow directions, bottom line. It's just never ending. For years, we tried to get a one-way street. We can't do that because of the residents across the street. I've been here for 40 years. It is the same problem, just more cars. So if parents could do their due diligence, perhaps things would not happen. And I would like to congratulate Yanni on his internship, and I wish you the best of luck, Dr. Mahan. Thank you.
Kartik Pejavera, 9 Artisan Way. I'm part of East Robotics, and I know that we've come up many times and have asked the board to take some action as to what's going on, and we do get the response every time that the board is doing what they can. And I know it's a long process, I understand that, and I hope that everything, that you guys are doing everything, and that administration's doing everything that they can to get the process going, to get a stipend, and possibly find a new advisor. But as a senior leaving the club, I am concerned as to how the club will continue next year. And all I'm asking is that the board be a little more transparent with that process, and letting us students and the parents of East Robotics students, let them in on the information of what's going on within the whole process of finding an advisor and continuing the program, especially those who want to stay in the program, who are younger than me. They're definitely concerned as to how that's going to happen. So all I'm asking is that more information be given to the students and the parents about what's going on with the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Dr. Malash, do you have any answers?
I do have some answers. I don't know if they match all the questions, but I do have some answers. Dr. Potowitz, I can send Sharon's testimony as well. I can send it as a follow-up addendum. No any problem with that. In terms of environmental resolutions, and the presentation will be done at the March 2nd, not the May 2nd, strategic planning, B&F meeting to go through. It is being done in a closed session because there's information that just has to be shared with the board before it is shared publicly. There's discussions that take place and possibly some questions that will come out of that meeting that will need to be followed up. I know that some of the stages are done. I don't have a list sitting in front of me of all of them that are done. Signage and parking certainly will come as a follow-up to the reports that we get back from the contractor that we use to go through. Often, I would agree, people do come to the podium with a problem or with a question or something that they want solved. I always think that it's there's an interesting piece with an understanding publicly about what the Board of Education does, what the role of the Board of Education is in terms of policymaking, in terms of oversight, versus role of building-based administrators, district-level administrators, and what our role is. The work of the board literally is done in public. There's a small percentage of the work that the board does is done during executive session, things that involve personnel, students, or legal matters. Other than that, everything the board does is done here publicly to go through. We always appreciate it. I think there's a value when people come out to meetings, and there's a value when people share their perspective, share their opinions, whether it's at this podium or in another format. The one thing that I will ask for as long as I do work such as this is when people have questions, issues, or concerns, contact the district. The best way for us to know about it, to deal with it, is when people contact us about it. One of the most challenging ways for us to find information is to find it second, third, or fourth hand when it's being redirected to come through. And often when questions come forward, one of the first things that I will go through is direct it back to a building, right? Because even in my work, and I get to be out in buildings as much as I can, I'm not in every building every day to know what's going on a regular basis. So questions often have to get filtered back, Dr. Smith, Dr. Mahan, Mrs. Wethington, and then back with the building administrators, to go through. And I am looking forward, thank you for being willing, to schedule a meeting. We certainly are looking forward to that as well. In terms of, and yes, Garrison was appointed tonight as the new architects. There are some projects that will continue. We'll finish up with Bessica and Associates. We're grateful for the work that Bessica has done in the district. And moving forward, we're moving forward with Garrison. Will that have an impact on the timing of the referendum? They were just appointed tonight. So we will have discussions with them about what's going on in the buildings. There'll be more dialogue, and we are continuing on the path in the time frame, today as we were yesterday in terms of what's going on. Traffic outside of our schools is a challenge. Let's go even step back one more. Traffic in Cherry Hill is a challenge. It's a challenge today. It's going to continue to be a challenge. I don't believe it's going to be lessened in terms of a challenge. When you look at our elementary schools, I do believe one of the biggest challenges at our elementary schools is that they were built as neighborhood schools. Neighborhood schools where kids walked and parents walked their children to go to school. I would say that there's a very small percentage of children that actually walk to any of our elementary schools. Most children are in cars. We have, we have a handful of kids that are bused at all of our elementary schools, many more kids that are bused at the middle schools, and even more kids who are scheduled to be bused at the high schools. Another great example is Rosa, right? One of our middle schools sits out there on Browning. Every child that attends Rosa is assigned to a bus. Every child. Not some of them, not most of them, not many of them. There is not a single child who's designated as a walker that attends Rosa Middle School. So one thing that I would always encourage parents to do, put your child on the bus. Put your child on the bus, have your child ride the bus. The more cars that are outside of our schools, more congestion that is there. Again, we continue to encourage parents, remind parents. We have a great relationship with the Cherry Hill Police Department. It's never our goal to introduce parents or children into the criminal justice system, but we do talk about safety and security and what goes on. Traffic congestion is a problem, is going to continue to be a problem, I agree. In terms of East Robotics, we'll continue to talk about it, to ask people, to suggest to people, and there's a certain amount that can be transparent. Honestly, I would tell you there's a certain amount that just literally is not. Some of it, because as we've talked about, stipend positions come as a result of the collective bargaining agreement. The collective bargaining agreement is reached between the district with representatives of the Board of Education, negotiating with representatives of the Teachers Association. Stipends are, come through that process to go through. In terms of having folks that are interested, I will continue to ask people. I'm meeting either next week or the following week. Dr. Smith, I don't remember which one. We have a meeting set up over at High School East with Dr. Perry, some parents who are involved, with Mr. Dilks to talk about the program, to talk about what it looks like. We've had a lot of alumni come back in the last month or so and talk about robotics. We would always encourage people. We have a lot of alumni who come back and then coach in the district, whether it's either as a volunteer or in paid positions. We are looking for people that are interested in, to be a part of that program. Folks that are in the building, one of the greatest places to try to find somebody is within that building. There's going to be different impact parents and kids or other staff members talking to their peers at High School East than there is for me to walk down a hallway and say, hey, do you think you want to do this? Or hey, do you think you would do this? So I think we all need to be involved in what that discussion looks like. The money process and a paid position is involved in the process that it is right now. So that's all.
Thank you, Dr. Mosh. So with that, I will make a motion to adjourn for the evening. Do I have a second? Mr. Ovadia, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. See you in March at the committee meetings.